Hey everyone, you're listening to the Simple Electronics Podcast. I'm your host, Dan, from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel, and today's episode is sponsored by PCBWay. More on that a little bit later on. So today I do not have any very special guests. It is just me. I have emailed out a whole bunch of invites to the podcast, but, it's just that time of year where there's a lot of events and stuff. People are out of the office. There's really not much time to, sit down and have a podcast. So totally fine. Completely get that. And no problem. We'll start with a little bit of electronics stuff and channel updates, but I do have a little bit of misfortune to share. And so I'll do that more towards the end. I really don't want to be a downer. It's nothing serious, nothing health related, just, bit of a downer. All right, to start things off, what have I been working on? Well, I am nearly done my lithium iron phosphate battery setup. So for those of you who are not regular listeners, I have built a, 4-cell lithium pack, so 12-volt pack, out of some prismatic 105 amp hour cells that I got from AliExpress. And for those, I have designed brackets that sort of like surround the cells, hold the cells, and clamp the cells in orientation. Now, that was all done kind of a couple of weeks ago, but recently I've been building a bunch of accessories since the design I made for these batteries is for it to be modular. So you can sort of like insert modules as you want and add whatever you want to it. The issues I was running in is that 4 cells in series are actually fairly compact, and the BMS systems, battery management systems, that go onto these cells to control, maximum voltage, minimum voltage, and maximum current ratings, and a little bit of cell balancing, they're actually quite large. So I was kind of racking my brain a little bit to try to figure out how I was going to set everything up for it to work. I think I've got it kind of licked now. So what I have is I have a couple modules that'll slide in between the cell holders, one of which has a on-off switch, and I believe I set that up on the positive cable. I think it's on the positive. And on that, I put a switch that I got from AliExpress very inexpensively. It's supposed to be up to 150 amps, but I don't know if I believe that, but whatever, it is what it is. And I put 2 terminals on it and a push button. The 2 terminals, the plan for that is to have one terminal affected by the on-off switch and the other terminal not. And the deal is that the terminal for the on-off switch is going to be for the output. And so you would connect your load on the positive of that terminal. And the terminal next to it will be a charge port. So if you want to charge the device without the battery without your main device being active, you can do that. I think that's the idea I had. But it would be quite simple for people who want to make their own versions of this to just wire it slightly differently so that you can actually get the 2 terminals instead of just the one to do the exact same thing. So, pretty trivial. The push button, however, that is for a pre-charge resistor. So I've chosen to include the functionality to have a pre-charge resistor right in the pack because there is a need for pre-charge resistors when you use things like power inverters or anything with large capacitors to prevent pulling too much current from the cells. So what happens is in the input stage of power inverters, battery chargers, all sorts of things like that, there are massive banks of capacitors. And if you plug that directly onto a battery, it sparks. Well, those sparks aren't necessarily dangerous when it comes to lithium iron phosphate batteries because they are sealed. They don't really vent at all. So there's not any fumes that can explode like in a lead acid battery. But the issue is the instantaneous current can actually damage the cells. The cells have a maximum instantaneous current of usually about 2 to 3 C, so 2 to 3 times the rated capacity. So for my 105 amp hour cells, I think the max is 210. So you can only pull 210 amps. So if you had a large power inverter, you could pull 200 amps easily for just a fraction of a millisecond, charging the capacitors. But the goal is to just use the pre-charge resistor, which basically you would press this button and current would flow through resistors, low value resistors, and it would actually charge up the capacitors slowly, and then you can flip the switch on. So I put all this functionality into my module. On the negative, I've designed a different module to take a circuit breaker, a pretty large circuit breaker with M6 terminals. I thought I had ordered a 100 amp circuit breaker, but I had not. I actually had not even ordered the same form factor circuit breaker as I thought. So I had to order some from Amazon, which is unfortunate. But that'll be on the negative terminal, and it'll be in between the battery and the BMS. And the goal here is that I have a holder for it. I guess I can kind of like explain what it looks like, but it's just basically if you search, circuit breaker, 100 amps or whatever, it's the rectangle ones with 2 terminals and 2 mounting bolts and, the red like little lever. One of the mounting bolts is actually going to be a power terminal. So it keeps it very compact, very small, so that I can have it and the battery stays relatively small. And the other thing that I have made is little lugs to mount the BMS onto the side of the cells. So when I'm done, I should have a fairly compact 12 volt, 105 amp hour, cell setup. I think I only have one thing left to sort of put together, which is the cell balancer. So I think the cell balancer will just hook to the front of the BMS, and then after that, it should be ready to release. And by release, what I mean is give it to the community so I can get, in the form of a video and the files, so I can get a little bit of feedback of what you guys want on your battery packs. Like, what am I missing that would be a nice to have? And, these kinds of things, perfect is the enemy of done. And so I think it's going to be released in a fairly usable state, even though I have some ideas for improvements. So yeah, I can't wait to see what you guys think of my design. If it's, garbage, if you like it, if it's compact, if, it's useful, if you guys are going to try it yourselves. And I'm going to try to release it in a way that you get the files so that you can modify them for whatever size of cell that you may use. Another thing I find really interesting about this whole journey of making this lithium iron phosphate battery is that binding posts, the ones with the 4mm bananas, so the standard binding posts, they have something like an M3 thread on the bottom, and they are very inexpensive, which is great. But an M3 thread on the bottom means that it's actually fairly low current device. It can't really, push that much current because you need a tiny little terminal to fit that M3 thread, or, a big terminal with a tiny hole in it, but then you don't have a lot of surface area. So one thing I've been actually thinking about is a project that I can knock out fairly quickly. I believe I can knock it out fairly quickly. And that is to make, custom modular binding posts. And hear me out on this one. For a binding post, all you really need, right, is a stud of some kind, a bolt without a head, essentially, made out of conductive material. And you need it in, whatever length to go through the case you want, and to be able to secure it in the case, and then have wires hooked up to the bottom side inside the case or the mounting bracket or whatever, and wires on the top hooked up to the mounting or whatever, and then a cap for the top, usually with some knurling so that you can thread it by hand. Now, the other thing you need is optional, is to have a plastic housing to insulate the stud from the mounting place, because sometimes you need the binding post to be installed in like conductive material, such as a sheet metal case. So I went on AliExpress and I took a look, and the most conductive material that I can find readily available is brass. So brass is available in threaded rod form in a myriad of sizes, up to like M12 or even bigger, so 12 millimeter diameter, which is absolutely huge. I mean, I think to carry, let's say multiple tens of amps, 50, 60, 70 amps, I feel like you can move that much current, over a short distance in an M6, maybe an M8, maybe an M10 stud. And so you get like M10 or M6 or whatever threaded rod, and then you cut it to length, round off the edges, and just make sure the threads are fine. Then you get brass nuts, also available on AliExpress, not very expensive. And then that secures the stud. You put one nut on the stud, you put it in your mounting hardware, and then you put another nut on the bottom and you lock them against each other. You tighten them against each other. That'll hold the stud securely. And for extra security, I can easily design a sort of like a parametric, like ring of, however deep you want, however diameter you want, out of plastic that you can 3D print. And then you can put that in your enclosure, put the stud through that, and then lock it with the nuts. That stuff is actually very easy to CAD. I could probably CAD that up, in 20 minutes or less. So now you have a threaded portion on the top of your mounting bracket, a threaded portion on the bottom of your mounting bracket, and you have, brass nuts providing a large surface area for a ring terminal to sit on. Underneath, then, all you need is another brass nut in order to put the ring terminal on, and then you would thread the second brass nut on and lock it against the bottom brass nut. And then on the top, all you need is like a knurled, thumb wheel thing with a hex, shape cut into the top of it that you press a brass nut into, just so it sticks out a little bit, and then there you go. You have yourself a simple solution to make a homemade binding post. And the fact is, you may pay a little bit more, in advance, but you'll get the materials to make so many more binding posts just by buying, one set of materials, for the same price as, a set of binding posts. So I think that's a very doable project, a very quick project for me to knock out. And so I might do that on a live stream. I might just I'm going to try to learn parametric modeling, but I will also try to publish, an M3, M4, M5, M6, M7, M8, M6, M8, M10, and M12, and M14 maybe sets. So I'll publish all of those, but I'll also try to publish the parametric files so that you guys can customize everything to your liking. So that's my thought. Let me know what you think about that. And if you're interested in seeing it done live, let me know, because I haven't done a live stream in a little while, and it'd be nice to do it again. Another thing I have all the parts and pieces for, which I'm quite excited to make a video, but I do need a bit of guidance from you guys, is a cheap Fluke multimeter roundup. And so I don't know if you guys know this, but in the automotive industry, Fluke is like the end-all be-all, the 88.4? I think it's the 85-4. That's the king of the automotive multimeters. It's such a fantastic multimeter. And Fluke, the brand itself, carries a huge reputation in the electrical world, like the electrician world, I should say, for being like very reliable, very robust, durable, and I think Scott, the Def Palm, was saying that they are warranted for life. I believe so. But the problem is, Fluke multimeters are exceedingly expensive. I think here in Canada for a 88V, 88.5, I believe it's about $1,000 for the kit that includes the thermocouple and the magnetic hanger and everything. So $1,000 is a lot of money. And my channel is more sort of centered on beginners that want to buy equipment affordably, good equipment affordably, and will have it last quite a while. So in case you didn't know, Fluke actually makes some low-end multimeters, and you can find them on Amazon. So the low-end ones are typically designed for the Chinese market, but should still have the same Fluke reliability. At least this is the thought. So what I did is I ordered all 4 of the low-end Fluke multimeters for me to test out a little bit. So the models are the Fluke 15B+, the Fluke 17B+, the Fluke 18B+, and the Fluke 101. So the Fluke 101 is sort of like aimed at people learning through like colleges and universities and stuff like that. So it's really the 101 because it's the educational version. And then the 15, 17, and 18 are just meant for general use electronics, but they're meant for the Chinese market. The 15, 17, and the 18 are. The 101 is a North American market multimeter. So you can go on Amazon and buy, the 15, 17, and the 18B multimeters. And I think the 18 is about 180 Canadian and the 15 is 130, something like that. So just like around the 100 to, less than $200 for a Fluke multimeter. And then the 101 is available for around 70 Canadian dollars. So very affordable little multimeters, but I'm curious to get them in my hands and see my initial thoughts about them. Check their accuracy, because I think that's one of the specs that's not so great is the accuracy. But in automotive world, it doesn't matter. In the electronics world, it might matter a little bit more. But the other thing is I don't believe they have a true RMS AC reading. I'm not 100% sure on that one. I need to look up the specs. But basically, herein lies the problem. So I've got 4 Fluke multimeters, and I want to make a video with just quick testing of the 4 Fluke multimeters. So the first thing is to introduce the fact that there are cheap Fluke multimeters, and I want to put them through rapid testing, sort of like, how does it feel in the hand? How does it feel to use? What's the, what do you get in the box? That kind of thing. And then do a quick accuracy test, because I do have the Kaiweets, testing box that I made a little while ago. So I want to do those tests and be comparative tests, also talk a little bit about the specs. And I think that's a good video right there. Not a review, a first look at all 4 of these multimeters. But what I would like to know is, if you were shopping for an inexpensive multimeter, what kind of stuff would you want to know? What kind of review would you want to see from these multimeters? Because I need to put them through their paces, give them a shot, and, come up with a buying recommendation, 6 months, 8 months, a year down the road. So let me know what you think I should be testing, what I should be doing with these multimeters. And we'll go from there. But because they're like Fluke branded, and Fluke does stand behind their products, and trust me, this is not a paid sponsorship, I would say that I would trust these to check, my lithium iron phosphate batteries. I would trust them to, shove the probes into the wall in the volts mode. The accuracy, I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to check on that. I mean, somewhere they have to save money, right? Because these things are much cheaper than their mainline products. But I do want to see how good a value they are. And that's why I'm pretty excited. Plus, I have 4 boxes of Fluke multimeters sitting in my workshop for like the first time ever. So it's awesome. I managed to snag them during one of AliExpress's sales. So I ended up paying actually not that much for them. I'm going to go back here while I have you guys on the podcast as my captive audience. And I'll see if I can pull up how much I paid for them. I do know that the Fluke 101 was the cheapest one. But it looks like for the 15B Plus, the 17B Plus, and the 18B Plus, altogether I paid 350 Canadian dollars. So it's going to be a $400 video, but I mean, I think I can do long-term testing with them, and so I don't think it's wasted. And then when I'm done with them, I can either resell them, donate them to a makerspace, or, you know, whatever. I could do something with them. They're not lost forever, so I will hang on to them for a little while. And you know what? If they end up taking too much space in my workshop, I can always give them away to my subscribers. But yeah, I need to put them through their paces at first. Just a quick interruption to talk about this episode's sponsor, PCBWay. PCBWay has been a long-term sponsor of the channel, and I think they're a good match for my channel because they provide quality PCBs for a reasonable price. You can get boards manufactured up to 100 mils by 100 mils for just $5, including shipping to Canada, $15 US, including shipping to USA, $12 US, which is incredibly cheap for professionally manufactured PCBs. I can personally attest to the quality of these PCBs, and so if you want a circuit immortalized forever, check out PCBWay.com with the link in the description. Now back to the conversation. Oh, and earlier I was talking about live streams. I also have Sunfounder have sent me a Zeus robot kit. It's one of these robots with sort of like the Omni wheels. And it looks like it is powered by an Arduino R3, which is, I mean, I kind of wish there was an R4 in there, but still, Arduino Uno R3, pretty decent. It also comes with a ESP32 camera, which is interesting because you would think the ESP32 would be powerful enough, with an I/O expander or something to, be standalone to do all the control, but hey, I guess not, but that's fine. So that's another idea for a live stream build. It looks like it has 4 motors. I just have the kit open in front of me here. Haven't opened the box yet, just the outer box, and I'm looking at what's included with it. So it's got 4 motors. It's got Omni grayscale module. I have no idea what that means. It's got a remote control, just like a TV remote type thing or RGB remote type thing. The R3, a shield, an ESP32 cam, obstacle detection, ultrasonic sensor, mecanum wheels, so like those omnidirectional wheels, a little bit of a frame. So yeah, that should be pretty neat to put together. They asked me to just take a look at it. No strings attached. I don't have to say anything nice about it if I don't want to, but they did ask me to make a video, so I shall. Also have the Dawnstar microscope to take a look at still. Have not got to that yet. It's one of those things where I have to have a lot of moving parts. I have to make sure that I capture video in my PC. And honestly, the lithium iron phosphate batteries have been sitting on my desk for quite a while now, taking up space. So I can't wait to sort of move that on to the side, do a little bit of charging, discharging cycles, stuff like that, so I can work on other stuff on my desk, like the Dawnstar microscope, for example. So I did tell them for the Zeus kit and the microscope that it should be ETA sometime next week. So the plan is to get those videos done. However, we're going to get to the misfortune end of the podcast at some point, and then you guys will judge if that timeline is reasonable or not. I mean, either way, I'm going to try to make it work, but it is what it is. In the meantime, though, I have been ordering really, really cheap stuff from AliExpress. I can't tell you how excited I am to have found a way to get cheap stuff from AliExpress or from China in general again. Since the pandemic, the shipping has been ridiculous on stuff from AliExpress. So, I mean, it's still worth it because it's still far cheaper than buying things locally. Even though like shipping has gone up quite a bit and stuff has doubled and tripled in price from AliExpress, locally stuff like that has gone way up in price as well. So it's still cheaper to get stuff on AliExpress. But I have talked about this before. And if you go onto the AliExpress app, and again, this is not sponsored in any way. This is just literally what excites me these days. You get the app and then you go on the home page of the app and you click, 3+ items from $1.99 US, and up. And I think it's called the choice, like it's like a checkmark choice section. But you go into there, and my app is set in Canadian dollars, but most of the items that you see are actually $1.99 US. So I'm seeing them at $2.75 Canadian. And make sure when you click on the items that you want to buy that you check the options, because sometimes the higher optioned part is more expensive than $1.99, but sometimes the more optioned part is not. So I'll give you an example. They're selling these off-road LEDs, like those light bars that people put on cars. So not exactly those, just like the little tinier square ones of those. And so they were advertising the 4 LED ones, so just little square of LED lights for $1.99. But when I went to the listing, I could pick the one, I think it had 8 LEDs also for $1.99. So you can upgrade typically like a multi-listing listing. You get the more expensive thing for the same price as the advertised $1.99. Sometimes if you go too high up, obviously the price goes up. And so that's your choice to buy it or not. But like just scrolling through here quickly, those switches I used, the battery switches, I think I paid about $4 each before. Now they're available $2.75, so $1.99 American. So I bought a couple of them, but you can't order them at the same time. You have to order them, and then you have to do it again, then do it again. That kind of thing. Heat shrink, 4-to-1 heat shrink, a meter of them, $1.99, even independent of size. Set of taps for cutting threads, some metric lock nuts. There's some 2-pin Deutsch connectors for automotive use. Some LED strips, Tessa tape, baseball hats, like all sorts of stuff like that you can get for really cheap. And I think it'll be worth it. And so what's been happening is I think I've done 4 orders, maybe 4 or 5 orders, because you have to order at least 3 items. But sometimes, I've gone up to like 10. I've gone a little nuts. So I did 4 separate orders. I think one of which only had stuff for my wife. I was buying her like tank tops and stuff for extremely cheap. But the other orders I've been saving here, and I'm going to make a mailbag video of just these cheap items. And so some items were like literally $1.99 American, free shipping. It's like, it's the new, eBay cheap stuff frontier. And, again, I've said this before, but I think it's the Temu influence. They're cornering the cheap market in AliExpress, trying to compete, which I am all for. Competition is always good. So yeah, in this case, it's pretty damn good. So before we move on to the misfortune, I do want to talk about some happy times that are going on. So this year, early in the season, I bought a small 14-foot aluminum boat. I had a 12-foot aluminum boat, which I gifted to my dad, which was very rough. Like it was in very rough shape, and it's a bit small. I mean, I'm a bit of a chonky guy, and once you put an electric motor in there, which I want for my sort of current testing and all that sort of stuff, and a battery, which was a lead acid battery, quite heavy, and then a gas-powered motor. I have a Evinrude from the 1960s, which I bought for very little money, fixed up, and then the fuel tank, paddles, fishing gear, and filming equipment, because I do bring filming equipment with me, although I have not really published any videos, and I'm not sure if I'm going to. But anyways, earlier this year, I bought a tiny little trailer and a 14-foot boat. The 14-foot boat was an incredible steal of a deal. It's a Lund. I think it's a Lund. Anyways, it's a brand name boat. It's 14 feet long, 5 feet wide. So it's quite a big boy for an aluminum boat. It has no leaks. Bottom's in perfect shape. A couple little dings here and there on the inside. Needs to be painted, etc., etc. But overall, a fantastic quality boat. I've never owned anything of this high quality, aside from my Volvo, I guess. But I've been spending some time on the water at my parents' cottage. And I say cottage, it's a shack. It's not insulated at the moment. It has no running water. But I'm, grateful to be able to have access to the lake. I have been spending some time there, putting the boat in the water, going out for a run with the gas-powered motor, setting anchor, and fishing, especially in very quiet bays and little areas, exploring with the little electric motor. It has been amazing to spend time at a quiet lake, sort of alone in nature with my thoughts. The other day, I went up there on last Friday. Was it last Friday? Yeah, I think it was last Friday. And I was sight casting bass. Like, you could see bass in the shallows, and I was casting above them and bringing the lure towards them. I was watching them go. I found a weed bed that was just below the surface of the water, and it was going on forever. The lake was kind of rough because it was windy, so I ducked into this bay where I found this spot. It was awesome. So I've been sort of like recentering myself, heading out on the water and just, hanging out. So it's been great. The goal is to eventually have this sort of freedom near home. So the cottage is quite a drive. It's not really doable after a work day, except my mobile mechanic job. I left the dealership where I used to work, and I work with a mobile guy now. And sometimes the workspace that we go to is nearly halfway to my parents' cottage. And so on those days, I can jet up to the cottage, pin the trailer that's sitting at the cottage, unlock everything, back it into the water, tie it up to the dock, have a bite to eat, and then head out for a couple hours on the water, probably 3-4 hours before it starts getting dark, put the boat back on the trailer, pull it out, put everything away, and head home. So that's been great. The goal is to eventually have this boat here at my house. There's no lake around my house, but there is a river. We have the Ottawa River, which runs east-west to the north end of the town. The town is built on the south shore of the Ottawa River. And the issue is my gas motor, which you really need a gas outboard because the water moves so fast. It's old and it's not reliable. So I'm a little sketched out to bring it on the Ottawa River, because if you break down, you could end up, halfway to the ocean by the time you hit yourself on anything. You know what I mean? Like, it's big. It's kind of big water. There's kind of a lot of people around. But my goal is to eventually, have the boat nearby, either at my house or at a storage or on someone's property close by, where I can pin the trailer after work, put it in the water, and go out for a fish locally. I don't have to go so far. And with this new boat, even though I paid very little money for it, I got a smoking deal. It is big enough and stable enough and wide enough that now I'm getting very close to achieving that. I would like a newer motor, something in the 2000s, and probably 4-stroke, and probably something with very low hours. It's not in the budget this year, but maybe next year we'll have to see. But right now I'm so content with my setup that I can see a future where I can put it in, quote unquote, scarier waters. Also, on the subject of boats and stuff, the lithium iron phosphate batteries, the goal is to have my boat be entirely electric eventually. So not right now, but eventually. I don't really want a gasoline motor. I'm not a fan. I mean, I'm a professional mechanic by trade, and the last thing I want to do is work on stuff, when I get home from work. I just want to, pop a battery pack in and go off. And so eventually I will have, probably converted outboard motor converted to electric, because trolling motors and those kinds of things, they're not really made for any speed, and you really need a little bit of speed to fight the current here on the Ottawa River. But yeah, eventually that's the goal, to be all electric. I was even looking at, there's a product now that hooks up to a cheap trolling motor. For those of you that don't know, maybe I should introduce this a little bit better. But for those of you that don't know, a lot of serious fishermen, they have very expensive boats, usually around $50,000, and that's not something I'm working my way towards. I'm perfectly content in a small aluminum boat. But they have these $1,200 to $2,400, and we can go up to $5,000. Actually, the limit is the sky is the limit. They have these trolling motors that attach to the front of the boat, and when you put them in the water, you can control them with a remote control. Now, that's not special. I mean, there's steering on it, electric steering, so it turns, electric throttle. But the other cool thing is that there's a GPS antenna and a control module on it where you can have it do an anchor lock. So you press the button anchor lock, and the motor will turn and accelerate and decelerate to keep you in one position. So that's cool enough as it is. But there's another function on these motors, these expensive electric trolling motors, where they can also record a path that you've made. So let's say you fish around the shore of this lake, right on the specific side of the lake, going around rocks and logs and stuff like that. And it can record all that data, and then you can have it play back the route. So it autonomously moves you around that route so you can get to all the fish all the spots you wanted. And so the goal is eventually to have something like that. But then I don't want to pay full pop for those things. It's too much money, right? I'm not a man of means. But then I saw a product that attaches itself to a regular trolling motor, like I already have. Like, I think I paid some $80 for my trolling motor, and that was years and years ago, probably definitely over 10 years. It was before we bought the house. So yeah, 15 years ago. And it attaches to a regular trolling motor and adds that functionality in. And I was looking at the way it's built, and it doesn't seem all that complicated. So my goal is going to be, maybe over the winter, is to work on that sort of project, to make my own attachment for my own trolling motor to make it autonomous like that. There is, it sounds like it's a crazy thing and that, it's not possible to do, but there are already, flight controllers for remote control aircraft, drones and boats and stuff, but all remote control stuff and land vehicles that takes GPS data and steering input and tuning and all these things, and it does autonomous paths like that. So I believe the functionality won't be as difficult as you may think, but you do need sort of an electric motor with a gear drive to turn the motor around. But I think it's very doable. And then I would modify the speed control to be done all electronically as well, probably through some big MOSFETs like the ones they use for 3D printer beds or whatever, fairly high current MOSFETs. And then I feel as though I'm not all that far off. I just need to do the mechanical solution of like a gear that interlocks into another gear that, spins around in this thing. So I think I would love to design one and then release, obviously the plans to the community so they can do their own. So that would be great for that trolling motor, but that doesn't help me when it comes to having full electric, propulsion, because a trolling motor is great for, slow speeds. They have a lot of torque, but they go very slow. So the other thing is an electric motor conversion to convert a, broken outboard motor into an electric version. And I think I can do that fairly easily because I still plan on converting a car alternator into a 3-phase motor, which should give me enough oomph to be equivalent to a couple horsepower, gasoline motor. And then I have the lithium iron phosphate batteries. They'll be in the boat. Maybe the bow section can have a little solar panel to charge while I'm away. And these things should be, or even, I can charge them here at home with a solar setup, which I still haven't set up, which is still in the basement, which is embarrassing. But yeah, so maybe I can charge the batteries all week, and when my mechanic shift brings me halfway to the cottage, then I can bring the batteries with me, drop them in the boat at the end of the day, and then, have at her. Or if it's reliable enough, I can just have it here locally at my house and then, charge the batteries directly in the boat, pin the trailer, unpin the solar panels, and away we go. Now, before you say something about having a solar roof on my boat, it's not going to work for fishing. And the reason is for fishing, you need a lot of space. So I'd need a much bigger boat to have, a solar roof, to have enough space in the back of the boat for like a fishing deck or in the front as a casting deck. So not feasible on a 14-foot boat, but who knows? Who knows what the future brings? I could end up with a inexpensive, 20-foot boat or a pontoon or something. But again, these things take space, and I think I would be upgrading my house first. And I don't see a future in the next 10 years where I'll be able to afford to upgrade my house. So, but these are just my thoughts. These are what I'm working with. And I hope you come along for the ride. All right, on to my misfortunes now. So yeah, some of you might know I drive an old European car. So I have a 2001 Volvo V70, and actually so far it's been incredibly reliable. So I've done some repairs to it. I recently took a few days off of work, off the mechanic's job, not the teaching job. I don't have any days off in that line of work, so I couldn't. But the mechanic's job, I did take a little bit of time off to, work on my car. I had to do a radiator, a timing belt water pump. I had to change the O-rings in the heater core because they were leaking coolant on the inside. I went to the scrapyard, picked up a whole bunch of parts. There's a whole bunch of like cosmetic things that are a pain in the butt. You may have seen also a video where I had repaired one of my taillights because it was corroding. So I got a new taillight for the other side, but not this side. Anyways, there's work to be done. It's a super old car, and I'm doing it slowly but surely. That's not the misfortune. So on Friday, when I was coming back from my parents' cottage, I was nearly home, and the D light in the dash, the D is like to tell you what the transmission is in drive, turned into a dash, like just a bar, and a message popped up saying transmission service required. And honestly, I couldn't feel any difference. It's an automatic transmission. It felt the same as before. So, I mean, I continued driving. It wasn't, I have two levels of warning on the dash. There's a yellow warning, which is like, take care of this sooner rather than later. And there's a red warning where it's like, yeah, you cannot drive. This was just a yellow warning, which is fine. Same yellow warning comes on for check engine light. I have a little bit of an evap leak, which is fine. I just, fixed it, clear the code, and then it comes back because I can't reach the component. Anyways, long story. It's just emissions problem. I also get the yellow warning because one of the taillights is burnt, but it's not burnt, it's corroded. So I'm waiting to get the new piece. Again, not a big deal. This was just a yellow warning. So I noticed at a red light, if I turned off the vehicle, started it back on, it would just keep driving as normal. So I thought, okay, today's Friday. On Monday, I work with, the mobile mechanic. I'll ask him for his scanner. He has a fancy scanner that he uses for work, and I'll scan the codes and see what's going on. So I leave Monday morning. It's quite a distance to this particular job site, and the transmission starts acting a little weird on the way. Like, it would still shift, but it definitely felt a little bit more sluggish. Same code or same message on the dash, just a yellow warning, no issues aside from that. But I make it like no worries, like there's actually no problems. I go scan the code once I get there, and the scan is for a lockup solenoid. It's a code that one of the 7 or 8, I think it has 8 shift solenoids, is having issues. I do some reading, and it seems like that's a death code. It seems like a lot of people who get that code means a transmission is completely pooched. But the thing is, my car drove kind of fine, and when I turned off the car, turned it back on, it sort of acted normal for a little bit and then screwed up, So it seemed to be more electronic problem. I was also reading that these transmissions, they're fill for life. So the fluid, you don't have to change it. You just have to maintain the level. And my level was good. I checked it. But some people were saying, changing the transmission fluid, and there's a specific way to do it where you empty more of the fluid than what's in the pan for these specific transmissions, that actually fixed this problem, the same code I was getting. So I was like, okay, it's now, Monday evening. I'm on my way home. I'm going to get some fluid on Tuesday. And also on Tuesday, I said there's also an adaptation you can reset inside the transmission, and then it should work. On the way home, it started getting a little bit worse. Started feeling like it was slipping some more, but still perfectly drivable. I mean, everything is fine. So on Tuesday morning, I head to the college. I have a college job. And so on the way to the college, I hop onto the freeway, and the transmission starts slipping like crazy. I max out at 60 kilometers an hour. You'll have to check what that is for you mile per hour folks. But our highways here are 100 miles an hour, roughly 60, 65 miles an hour. And this was like just over half of that. So whatever, 35 miles per hour, something like that. And so I had to put my 4-ways on, drive on the paved shoulder, took the first exit, which happened to be, or the next exit, I should say, which happened to be the exit I needed to go to the college. And then the road falls to 60. And so it's not so bad. I can just keep driving basically at my max speed. I pull into the parking lot at the college, and I don't, like the car barely goes forward now. And in fact, I usually back into my spots. It's just a habit I have as a professional mechanic. When we're done with cars, we back them into the spots so the customer feels effortless when they leave. They just drive out. The car had no more reverse. And this time it said transmission service, immediate transmission attention required. Now it's a red code. And so I was like, oh no. This is not good. So I actually had to drive over the grass a little bit because I didn't have reverse, and I, parked into another spot that was easy to get out of. And then I grabbed the scanner from the college. I just scanned my car, erased all the adaptations, which some people had said, lengthen the life of their transmission. Did all the reset of the modules, everything, and then started the car, put it in drive. The car barely moves, still have no reverse. So my car, I feel like it was probably like 45 minutes, maybe an hour, hour and a half max of driving from first symptom to done, like completely done for. So my car is now stranded at the college. My coworker, though, because he's also a car guy, while I was teaching a specific class, he went on the hunt, and he found me a used transmission. Now, you have to bear with me here. This is from an auto recycler, which is pretty common, but don't forget, this car is a 2001. It's an old car, old European car. And so he finds one, and this one has 200 and something thousand kilometers on it, and it cost me $800. It comes with a 30-day warranty. And so this is the bad news. I am without wheels. Before, it used to be no problem because I would take the bus everywhere because I had a bus pass because I was in university, or I worked close enough that I could walk to work. I cannot walk to work anymore. And public transit doesn't even go out to the mobile mechanic job. So basically, I am stuck fixing this in my driveway. And until it is fixed, I really don't have any free time. So I was just getting happy with, the setup I had, going up to my parents' cottage, doing some fishing on the lake there, beautiful, watching the sunset or the clouds roll in or whatever, and then driving home. And now not only can I not do that because my wife's car, which I can borrow, doesn't have a hitch on it, so I can't even put the boat in the water. But now I'm stuck fixing this, and it has to and it has to work, right? And I have 30 days to get it all done and trialed and all this stuff. So I figure the fluid I need and a little bit of extra stuff I need to buy to do the job, it'll cost me a couple $100, maybe, let's say another $500 in miscellaneous parts and stuff, and then a ton of labor in my driveway on my back. And then I have to go get an alignment done, so that'll be another $100. It's not fun. I am fortunate enough to be able to do the labor myself, so it costs a little bit less than it would, or it costs quite a bit less than it would for someone else. But like, the thing is, I'm at an age, and I work 3 jobs, so my time is quite precious, and now I do not have my time. So I don't want you to take this and think that you need to go over to my Patreon and donate or whatever. That's not what I'm asking here, because what I need more than money right now is time, and you can't get your time back, right? So I'm okay financially. I'm okay. I can borrow a car for now, but it feels like I had just finished a very big task, which is a different story for a different day. And now it seems like I'm plagued with another task. I can't just have a period of time where I get to relax. You know what I mean? And so now, yeah, I'm lucky. I'm surrounded by really cool people, though. So my boss from the mobile mechanics job, he asked me how I'm getting the car home. I said, well, I'm going to get a tow truck. It's going to cost me about $200, but it shouldn't be too bad. And he says, I'll tow it home for you. Don't worry about it. I got a trailer. Trailer's already in town. Like, we'll push on the trailer and we'll get it home. So I'm very thankful to him for that. My coworker, very understanding, and found me the transmission. My old man, he came to pick me up at work. We went today, actually. Today is Tuesday? Wednesday? What day is it? Wednesday. Must be Wednesday. we went and picked up the used transmission. It looks very rough, but I was assured it was tested, and there's a 30-day warranty on it. So it is what it is. So yeah, I'm going to install it in my car. A couple little modifications you need to do when, to try to keep this transmission going a little bit longer, like install auxiliary filters and stuff like that. So I will do all that. And then, and then hopefully it works. Now the issue is if it doesn't work, I'll basically be another 2 weeks without a car. So I'll have to, pull the transmission I got out and bring it back to them, wasting all the fluids I put into it, because these fluids are going to be about $14 a bottle, and I need about 14 bottles because I want to flush the old stuff out. So yeah, I'm going to waste all that stuff, all that time, and then bring it to him. And then he told me the second transmission he has in stock, the amount of time he needs is next week. He'll be able to, at the very end of the week, start pulling it out of the car. So yeah, I'll be a couple weeks without a car if that happens. But, wish me luck. Hopefully I won't break too many bolts. I won't hurt myself because it's a bit of a pain in the butt to do without transmission jack and stuff like that. But yeah, here's hoping it goes well. And I hope to get back on the water soon to, go back to my happy place. So yeah, that's my misfortune. Please don't feel bad for me. But the idea is this is my podcast, and I like to come on here and let you know what's going on in my life. So, I'm just sharing what's going on in my life. I acknowledge it could be a lot worse, and I'm happy I've got a spot that I can do the transmission swap in. I'm happy I've got the know-how that I've built over the last nearly 20 years, 18 years, something like that, of mechanicking. And so, yeah, I'm not telling you this for you to feel bad for me. I'm telling you this so that you know what's going on in my life. And yeah, if you catch me on a live stream this weekend, it'll likely be because I need a break from either the rain, the sweltering heat, or something like that outside. I'm going to check the weather real quick here for this weekend, because that's when I'll be able to do the transmission. Oh, great. It's going to be raining on Saturday, 21 degrees Celsius, and blazing hot on Sunday, 27 degrees Celsius. So that should be fun. But I mean, it is what it is. These things happen. I just wish I had a period of time where, I didn't have a sort of, end of reliability event. But I mean, whatever. It's an old Volvo. And hopefully the new transmission, the one I got, works. I think I'll be more than thrilled if it does. We'll see. And yeah, we're going to cross that bridge when we get there. So I want to thank you very much for listening. Let me know in the comments below, or you can reach me on Threads. You can try to get me on Twitter, but I don't check it as often anymore. But let me know what kind of car misfortunes you had, and what you had to do to fix it. And let me know if there's any videos you are looking forward to in the upcoming months. Thanks for listening.